Is Harlem gentrifying, and is it a good or bad thing? Mr. Gallagher.
The answer is obviously yes, Harlem is gentrifying, and the answer of whether it's a good thing or not, I suppose, depends on how you view that. I mean, it's not an easy answer, and I would say that I see in Washington Heights the same thing, which is forcing out businesses that have been very long, forcing out residents that have been very long. It's a problem across the city, and it extends to the farthest reaches of our city, which in East New York, they just redid their zoning thing. So my feeling about it is it aligns with the issue of housing, and it aligns with the idea of trying to create renters tax credits for people to get housing help, to get federal relief when our wages are stagnating, when housing costs are rising, and when people are being forced out of their house. The people who own get to write off part of their taxes every year in mortgage interest, and people who rent should get something similar. So,
all right, Mr. Powell.
Gentrification is definitely happening. It's not a good thing. I mean, I welcome other people to come to the neighborhood. Sure, I have no problem with that, and new restaurants, that's wonderful. But overall, if it's going to take my son 2 years to find a little studio somewhere to live, it's not a good thing. If it's going to take me, a couple of years to find a suitable place in my neighborhood, and I make 6 figures, it's not a good thing. If it's going to take somebody else to buy that brownstone that's on sale on 124th Street and 5th Avenue, and no one who was born and raised in Harlem can buy it, it's not a good thing.
All right, Mr. Wright, Assemblyman Wright.
Harlem is gentrifying just like a lot of other neighborhoods throughout this city, and it is not a good thing. Listen, a lot of us up here in the stage and beyond have worked long and hard to make this the wonderful neighborhood that it is today, to make it attractive. The good people can think about the good old days, but in a lot of ways, the good old days weren't all that good sometimes. They weren't all that good, so we worked long and hard to make this neighborhood attractive to a lot of folks. Now, the problem comes when folks from this neighborhood are getting kicked out of this neighborhood, and it's happening all over the place. Listen, people that come up here from other neighborhoods, they're not necessarily coming up here because they like us so much. They're coming up here because they're being priced out of their neighborhoods as well. So it is not a good thing, and so that's why we have to work as hard as we can in order to make sure that our folks are able to stay. Yes, I have a son too, and he still lives with me, and I want him out too.
All right, Mr. Linares.
I think that this is probably the biggest challenge, or one of the most challenging problems that we face neighborhood by neighborhood. It doesn't matter which part of Manhattan you're talking about, or even the Bronx. It's across the city. It's a question and issue of affordability. I think those families that have been here through thick and thin are being pushed out. And I believe we have to really address the crisis of homelessness that we have, and not just preserving the homes that we have, but also building new ones in a massive way, and the federal government needs to step on that. But I believe that we need to really have a strategy to protect, especially those who have retired or on fixed income. They are the most vulnerable, and we have to stand up to the greedy landlords that want to push us out of here.
All right, Mr. Williams.
Well, first of all, a lot of the change that we've seen taking place in our community is because people have failed to do their jobs. At the end of the day, when I said earlier that rents have gone up more than 90% in a 10-year period, 60% in the Bronx, 75% throughout New York City, people should have seen this coming. That is their job, it's their responsibility. They've abdicated their responsibility to you. As I said, people are more concerned about themselves and keeping these broken political machines in place than they are about you. They're more concerned about taking money in order to run their own campaigns from developers and real estate people than they are about you. And it comes to a point when you all have to make a decision. Do you care more about them, or do you care more about yourselves? Do you want to make certain that people who lived here for 20 and 30 years can continue to stay here? That's what leadership is about, and that's what planning is about. And that's why, again, you should elect new people if you want to have a difference. Because if we don't, 10 years from now, most of the people who live here paying rent will not be living in this community.
All right, Ambassador Coates.
The question was, is Harlem being gentrified? And yes, it is. It has been. people who wanted to make it attractive to others 25 years ago did not take into consideration those who were living here and what would happen when it was gentrified. So Martin Luther King said, the measure of a man, the measure of a woman is not where you are at moments of comfort, but where are you in moments of controversy and crisis. We are at a crisis because many are moving out or not able to stay in their neighborhoods because of gentrification. So as you look to your leadership on the national level for the member of Congress, I hope that you will consider looking at me and voting for me, for one who understands the local, the national scene as well, because we have a crisis on our hands. And the people who are being moved out because they cannot pay the taxes on their brownstones, people moved out because they can no longer afford the rent on their apartment, we have a crisis on our hands. We need leadership that responds to the now, because others did not respond when they had the chance to.